In this video, I'm going to reveal some of the mysteries about the paranormal and how electromagnetic frequencies and the supernatural are linked. All right, welcome back, Q. I'm kind of excited about doing this video. I've been thinking about this theory about electromagnetism and the paranormal for a while. I was talking to one of my friends from one of the villages here in Alaska, telling him about shadow people and electromagnetic frequencies like I was doing in my last videos. And they're like, this is really weird. The elders were telling me a story about how we used to have supernatural stuff happen all the time in the village, like little people visiting and Bigfoot and all this other stuff would come into town a lot. But then as soon as the white people put electricity and wires up in the building, they stopped coming. And that kind of made a little light bulb go off in my head. Like, the stories about little people, the stories about the supernatural and how they avoid the light and how things only come out of the dark. Maybe it's linked to electromagnetic frequencies. And it's not actually the light that they're avoiding, but the electromagnetic frequency interference that they don't like. Because I always wondered, why do they come out of the dark? Is it because they're scared? Is it because they need a dark thing to be scary? Or is there an actual scientific reason behind it? And that's where this video comes into play. The native elders recognized the fact that as soon as electricity was put up, the paranormal stopped coming to town. So in Irish folklore, they talk about how iron repels the fae, or they do not like iron. They don't like metal, basically. What does iron do to electrons? It conducts electrons. If you look in folklore, metal is often used to repel the supernatural. So werewolves don't like silver. Silver is electrically conductive. There's a whole bunch of things that don't like iron. Iron is electrically conductive. So here's a little article. People have used iron and silver to ward off paranormal entities for centuries. Why do these metals keep paranormal beings and entities away? Do they always work to protect you? Let's find out. People have used iron to protect against witches, evil spirits, and fairies. No one has conclusively proven that cold iron protects you. It's really historic folklore that tells us about its protection ability. Usually you need iron ore or cast iron. Other versions of iron don't have the purity required to work against paranormal beings. You normally need to place iron by doors and windows, like the horseshoe above the main entry, to keep the bad guys away. In other cases, you can take an iron amulet and put it under the steps of the main entrance of your house. Notice the recurring theme. It goes on or near a main entrance. It could be the front door, back door, or large windows. If it's big enough for you to walk through it, then it's easy for a spirit to come through it. So basically the gist of the iron thing is iron keeps away supernatural entities. Now, why would this be? Healers also like to take off metal when they're doing healing work because it can get hot. And what I'm thinking is that there is some type of connection between an electron conductivity and shamanism. Like, I'm calling it shamanism, and that's kind of a vague general term. Arthur C. Clarke said, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." And I think this comes into play with the paranormal, or what we call magic. So shamanism, magic, I believe that there are scientific laws that bind it, and that it is actually a science, but we don't understand it, and it falls outside the realm of where mankind has aimed their technological evolution, and therefore we can't explain it. And so if it exists and we can't explain it, it's magic. And I think shamanism clearly has something to do with science, because things that conduct electrons seem to interfere with magic or shamanism. And I use the term magic and shamanism loosely. Obviously, I believe in it. I've done weird things, but I know that there are laws that bind it, and it's not some hokey pokey BS like, oh, it doesn't make any sense, it's just magical. There's actually patterns to all the supernatural things. Like, when you look at stories of the supernatural, they're always coming out at night. And as I said earlier, it's kind of stupid to think, well, night's evil. It's darkness and darketh evil, so the evil creatures like to come out at night. The Fae come out at night. A lot of strange creatures are only spotted at night. Shadow people only come out at the dark. If you have a room that doesn't have any access to sunlight, you have supernatural paranormal activity in the room. And people associate fear and monsters with the darkness. And I believe that there's a scientific reason for this. And the clue to why they like the darkness is in the fact that they don't like iron. Iron conducts electricity. Light is a form of electromagnetic frequencies, meaning that these entities are using some type of energy that has something to do with the flow of electrons and electromagnetic frequency. Okay? So I'm going to move on to this article. By the way, this article is written by Ghosts and Monsters. I don't really know anything about the site, but I was just looking for any article that was supporting my hypothesis. So silver is a curious metal. Much like iron, we know it works well against paranormal and mystical beings, but we don't know why. Some claim that silver is linked to the moon, which powers the other world of the spirits and the paranormal. I don't necessarily buy that explanation. I think it may deal with purity of the metal that's an ability to enhance everyone's psychic strength. All right, so it says, silver has been known to drive away many types of paranormal creatures. Vampires, werewolves, boogeymen, hexes, and witches. So, werewolves are dogmen. Obviously, that's a popular topic. A lot of people see them. They apparently exist. And they don't like silver, okay? What I'm thinking that these things actually don't like is electrically conductive metal. And I tried to look up if there's things that didn't like gold, but I couldn't find anything. But I'm sure that the same way that putting a horseshoe over the door protects against these entities is the same reason that electronics and wiring in a house also protects against these entities. Now, if you think about this for a second, it makes sense. In houses and in cities, when people have paranormal encounters with supernatural beings, they usually come through in areas that don't have lighting, and they also don't have wiring. So generally under a person's bed, you're not going to have electrical wiring because you don't need it. And the monster under the bed comes to mind. People thinking there's a creature in the darkness under your bed. For example, one of my friends, I couldn't get her to do an interview about this because it scared the hell out of her and she's a little embarrassed, but she had an encounter with one of the little people. They look like little goblins. I've talked about them in previous videos. You can check them out. Anyway, she was asleep and this goblin-looking creature came out of her closet and grabbed her by the leg and started dragging her into the closet. And she was kicking and fighting, and it terrified the hell out of her. And she was eventually able to kick it off her, and then it just went back in the closet and vanished into thin air. And this leads me to believe that some kind of thing they're doing has to do with the electrons, and it has to do with electromagnetic frequencies. And the less interference they have, the easier it is for them to do what they do. So it's either doorways between realms or a different dimension, or there's some kind of weird part of nature that we're not aware of, part of the natural world that's hidden from us, and that can only interact with this part of the world when there is no electromagnetic interference. In one of my videos, I interviewed this guy named Mel Scahan, and he talked about how a shaman came to his house. All right, give me a second. I'm going to find the part. I'm going to start chaptering my videos because it's ridiculous trying to find stuff. Like, I was an amateur when I started. All right. I'm going to share a clip now from my previous video where I talked to a Yakima, Washington State Native American named Mel Scahan.
And when those two did not work out, and they called in a medicine man in from Oklahoma, a really powerful guy that worked on some different places on the Yakima Reservation and over on the Nez Perce Reservation in Idaho. And he had certain requirements that the house had to be totally blacked out. Windows, so no light can get in, and the electricity had to be shut off at the breaker box, so the spirits couldn't gather power from the electricity in the house, so all the power had to be cut.
The shaman had to do a ritual in order to contact the Bigfoot, and the way he did the ritual was put garbage bags over all the windows and black out all the light, so no light allowed. And then he turned off the circuit breaker, so no electricity allowed. That just leads me to believe that these creatures exist for real, and they interact with this world physically for real, but for some reason they can't cross through or come unless there's a low amount of electromagnetic interference. Turning the circuit breaker off leads me to believe that the wires aren't necessarily stopping them, but the electricity in conjunction with the wires, electricity flowing through the wires, is what they don't like. Which leads me to another video. I'm going to show you guys a little clip from Mr. Creepy Master. This clip basically is a story. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm just going to assume that it's true. This town in the fringes of the middle of nowhere had a power out.
4 years ago from today, there was a blackout in my town that lasted for 3 days.
And during that week, when there was no electricity and no lights, things started coming from the woods and abducting people.
On that day, however, the restaurant was fully packed, so much so that many were standing. I went up to my boss and asked him about the crowd. He said, "They're not here for the food. Mr. and Mrs. Pavlov have gone missing last night. Alexei hasn't come to work either. People are scared."
And they abducted like 12 people or 20 people or something.
I was awoken by the loudest and the most disheartening scream I had ever heard. I got up like a spring recoiling, grabbed my rifle, then ran outside onto the street. As soon as I hit the pavement outside, I heard a scream coming from the south of the street. I was about to run toward it, but then another scream came from Mrs. Pedrop's. I ran toward Mrs. Pedrop's since she lives across the street from mine. There were 5 continuous screams until I was able to break the door down. Then it became eerily quiet, as the only things I could hear were the wind, my footsteps, and me breathing.
Once the lights were off and once the power was off, it was like the chains were released from their arms that were restricting them from being able to do what they wanted to do, and they were able to attack the community. But the mere fact that they use this ability, they need darkness and they need not to have any electrical interference, does not inherently make them evil. Sliders, the street light interference people, the people who, when they're around lights, they flicker, they put on an electrical watch, or their phone will die in their hands, reminds me of when ghost hunters or paranormal hunters, like they're looking for Bigfoot or ghost or shadow people, whatever they mistakenly think the entity is that they're dealing with, their electronics will often die. Lights will flicker. So light bulbs will flicker and burn out. If you notice a common theme in horror movies, lights flicker and burn out, right? So when something scary comes, the lights start going, right? It's a common thing. And I think that just denotes the correlation between electron interference in these creatures. Imagine there's a version of this world, this dimension, with these buildings and everything, kind of like Stranger Things in the Upside Down, where you can still kind of interact and see this world, but you're not fully there. And the only way for you to interact with this world is for there not to be electromagnetic interference. Now imagine this layer of the world. Now imagine this layer of the world with the like the upside down kind of area has this entire ecosystem, peoples and creatures. There might be plants, there might be animals. It might be a part of nature that we're completely ignorant of and oblivious of. And these people, these creatures, they might just be natural things that have always been able to interact at night with this world. And it's just part of the natural order of things that we just don't know about. EMFs irritate them or disrupt them in some way where they can't interact with this world, then it would make sense why they are never captured on trail cams or not often captured. The infrared light blasting out of the camera and the electronic field, the EMF field from the electronics in the camera, might prevent them from being able to go near it or irritate them in some way. It's kind of hard to say unless we actually captured one and did studies on it. But there's clearly some kind of aversion to electromagnetic frequencies that these things have. And trail cams are emitting these frequencies, so they're going to avoid them like the plague, thus rendering trap cams almost entirely pointless, which means that paranormal investigators are going to have to try to find a new way to combat or to document these things that does not involve radiating electromagnetic frequencies from all our electronics and infrared lights, blasting lights everywhere. Like, just because you can't see the light doesn't mean that it doesn't affect them. They don't like electromagnetic frequencies. They're not like, oh, I don't like light. Light bothers me. I have sensitive eyes. They're avoiding it for some reason that we don't understand. And I think it has to do with electrons. So just because our eyes can't pick up the spectrum of infrared radiation, infrared light, doesn't mean that it's not emitting the same thing that they're trying to avoid. So you might as well be blasting a freaking bright ass flashlight and turning on all the lights in the building if you're going to go ghost hunting while blasting infrared lights. And if you think about it in the context of, there's entities that are only showing up in the dark. Let's go investigate in the dark, but let's not think of the logic behind why they might only be showing up in the dark. Let's make it so we can't see, so it's creepy for us, and to us it seems dark, while we're still blasting electromagnetic radiation out into the room. They're defeating the purpose of the hunt. If you're trying to find a creature that's avoiding EMFs, and you're blasting EMFs with lights and you have all these electronics on you, you're going to have a tough time capturing anything on camera. So that share this video with all paranormal investigators out there, because if I'm right, we're never going to get evidence the way that we're going about it. We're never going to get evidence blasting infrared lights and with all these electronics on us unless we shield them somehow and we find a way to film without emitting radiation or EMF radiation. There's a common trend in the paranormal and stories. I like to look for commonalities, like things that are consistently showing up in paranormal stories. Because if you think about it, those are clues. If something's happening over and over again, like, oh, they don't like light, that's a clue. Like, hello, use your brain. Why don't they like light? Oh, because they're evil. People don't think. I swear. That's why I started YouTube. People don't use their heads. Bigfoots, there's association with battery drain and electronics failing. I've heard stories and I've talked to people who said their cameras died while they're trying to film Bigfoot or their phones died, blah, blah, blah. Aliens clearly are associated with electronic failure. Cars die, the car completely stops working, and then it mysteriously starts again, batteries drain, and time distortions. Okay? I heard a story on Darkness Prevails. I listen to a lot of paranormal stories to try to look for clues. And this lady encountered an alligator man, and her car stopped working, just like what would happen with alien abduction. Her car died, and the compasses and stuff started spinning, and she could hear and feel electrical clicking like all over. And then she saw this giant ass 8 foot, 9 foot tall alligator humanoid thing, and it terrified her. And then it took off after doing something. I don't remember the story, and I couldn't find it to show the example. But believe me, I heard the story, and I found it interesting that there's always a correlation with supernatural entities and electronic failure. Well, you see, the fire and the elemental, their spiritual energy drains the battery. No, there's a reason for this. Okay? I get so sick and tired of the narrative or the assumptions with the paranormal community, because one of the big problems with the paranormal field that I found is there's no quality control. It's exactly like the health food industry. You have a lot of quacky stuff out there, and there's no regulation, and there's no quality control for any of it. Anybody can say anything, and it doesn't matter. All right. I got a couple of videos to show you. In this video, I'm going to full screen it. So this video is from the Travel Channel. Now, I'm not going to try to play the whole video because I'm not trying to be like stealing their stuff. I actually did a show on the Travel Channel called The Alaskan Triangle. Check it out. Alaska Triangle. I'm on there. But this is a video of an example of an encounter with a supernatural being, and the lights start flickering and electronic failure. Check it out.
Lights were flickering inside the refrigerator, and I thought that was strange. I had never seen it before. But what really creeped me out was the light in the bathroom was started flickering, and I heard water running. So I kind of snuck around the corner, and the water was on. As I started to walk away from the bathroom after cutting the water off, I kind of heard something behind me, and that was actually this door here that closed. That's when I really truly got freaked out.
Anyway, the flickering lights is a clue. Whatever this thing's doing is messing with electricity.
Cody walks outside and calls his girlfriend to tell her what's been going on. She tells him to stay out of the house.
I said, well, look, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to keep filming because I don't know what to expect.
And when he does, he finds the kitchen in total disarray.
All the chairs were on the floor, knocked over. All the cabinets were open. Nope. I said, nope, I'm going back outside. I don't know what this is. I got scared.
After 2 hours, Cody finally musters up the courage to go back inside the house.
I went through every single room looking for somebody, thinking maybe somebody had gotten in and they were just trying to scare me. I checked every room, under every bed.
He doesn't find anyone.
The fourth or fifth time I had watched the video, I noticed something in the corner of the room, which is actually my daughter's room. So I screenshotted it and I just zoomed in on it. My heart just dropped. I could feel my...
All right, so a couple of points I wanted to make about this video was mainly the electronic flickering. Okay, you can see this creepy face. You can't really see too much detail, but he looks ashy white, has a little bit of hair, and is sticking his head from the ceiling. Now, it sticking his head from the ceiling leads me to believe that if they're using darkness as a portal or as like a way to travel, they can travel as long as there's a dark area to go through. Then if there's a shadow on the ceiling, it could pop his head out of the shadow and look down. Either that or it's crawling on the freaking walls. Or it's a ghost and it's floating around like a ghost. But personally, I believe that shadow people and anything that has to do with light flickering isn't a spiritual entity. I mean, you might call it spiritual. It's more of something to do with science, like super science, like a different layer of reality or interdimensional, coming from a world where they can only interact if they have a place without interference to come through and they actually exist. Because how else is it going to be trashing the apartment unless it had physical mass? Spirits, I don't think a spirit can do that. And I also think that a lot of people who think like spirits do stuff like that are misinterpreting some type of entity with a spirit.
Number 1, Screaming Hotel.
It's room 209. Amy says nobody's checked into that room, and there's reports of screaming coming from that room.
It was just another day when staff working at the Wingate Hotel in Illinois received several noise complaints about a room. However, strangely, no one was booked into the vocal suite. When staff checked it out, they also heard the unnatural screaming erupting from the mysterious accommodation. Refusing to wait for the police, John went inside with his trusty flashlight. But on the security footage, we can see some kind of person-shaped mist leaving the room before the lights begin to flicker.
See, lights flickering.
John, are you there?
According to John, the suite's furniture was eerily thrown about and the shower was running. Yikes. While some viewers have been quick to question the clip's authenticity.
All right, so some people might think that's a fake video, but I think the correlating facts... Actually, there's 2 correlating facts that one I haven't considered. In the first video, the water was running. In the second video, the water was running. Now, why would they need water? I'll have to think about that and make another video. Anyway, the lights flickered. So when the creature, the entity, whatever the hell it was passing through, it interfered with the electronics. It interfered with the electrons, the flow of electrons, and made the lights flicker. Bigfoot are notoriously hard to capture on camera. And that's because people put out trail cams and they avoid them as if they can detect them. And as I said earlier, I believe the reason for that is because electronics emit electromagnetic fields, and the infrared lights that the cameras use is technically electromagnetic frequencies and electromagnetic radiation that is blasting out of it. And if for some reason that we don't understand, supernatural creatures do not like electromagnetic frequency interference, then trail cams are never going to capture anything paranormal. At best, we're going to catch a glimpse of something that accidentally came within the field, and then as soon as it feels it, it's going to run away. So if there was a way, people, to shield electronics from emitting electromagnetic frequencies and to film in low light conditions without emitting electromagnetic frequencies, I think we'll have our best bet. And so my idea is basically if you want to record audio, you can use a microphone, but you have to wrap it in like tinfoil or something while enabling sound waves to still travel through, because sound waves are not electromagnetic frequencies, but the electronics in the microphone are. So you're going to want to poke holes in like a piece of tinfoil and wrap your electronics in it. And if you have a camera and you want to film supernatural entities, you're going to have to wrap the entire camera in tinfoil and expose only the lens to try to minimize EMF pollution. Ghost hunters they're not stupid, but they're not really, no one's really thought about this. They're not really using their heads. Like, why are they avoiding light? Is it because they're evil? Is it because they like dark? Because they're cruel, scary creatures, or is it because electromagnetic frequencies make it so they can't interact with this realm or this world? So share this with every single paranormal hunter you know out there. This hypothesis, share this video around. We need people to do investigations where they're not blasting EMFs out of there. Like, these people are loaded up with electronics, and these electronics are actively repelling what they're trying to capture. Just because we can't see infrared light doesn't mean it's not blasting out electromagnetic frequencies. So ghost hunters have this misconception like, oh, I can't see it and it looks dark to me, therefore the ghost should come out because for some reason they don't like light and it looks dark and we're tricking them. Well, no, because they're avoiding the light for a completely different reason than they don't like light. They probably would love to be in the light if they could. I mean, I can't speak for them, but the reason they're avoiding it is because of EMFs. If you're going to be using infrared cameras, you might as well turn on all the lights and use huge bright flashlights and walk around. And it's just completely defeating the purpose. So low light cameras, which are really expensive and hard to come by, are probably the only viable option for actually capturing these things on camera. Wrap the electronics in tinfoil and proceed with filming. And if you have a shadow person in your house, my theory or my hypothesis is that shadow people are not spirits. They are entities. They are some kind of creature that lives in a place that we cannot see. So if you have a shadow creature in your house and you would like to test my theory to see if I'm right, turn the circuit breaker off in your house. Turn all the lights off, turn the circuit breaker off, and wrap your electronics. If you want to record it, like try to get audio or whatever, wrap your electronics in something like tinfoil so that it won't emit a field that repels them. This also leads me to another point, my final point. If these things do not like EMFs, there might be a reason. It might disable their abilities and they don't like it, and it puts them in a vulnerable position. So if we want to capture these creatures, potentially an EMP bomb would work. Think about it. They don't like electromagnetic frequencies, so what if you blasted them with electromagnetic pulse bomb? The EMP, theoretically, if my theories are right, would completely disable their ability to have powers or to escape. By that same logic, an electromagnetic pulse gun that they use for drones, those EMP guns that you shoot a drone out of the sky, would potentially also work. So let's say you have Bigfoot screaming at you and you're in danger and you feel like they're going to kill you. They might be able to kill you. These things might be able to grab us and pull us to their world. Because in my previous video about shadow people, those creatures grabbed a person, a human being, and pulled them to where they are. And then when the person tried to come back to his village, all they saw was a shadow person. And then they're able to make him come back out of the shadow into the physical world by lacing food with iron. So when he tried to eat, the iron would touch him and it pulled him out of being a shadow. Meaning an EMP bomb might make a shadow person become a flesh and blood creature and trap it in this world. Or if you have some kind of metal flake bomb with like iron or some kind of electromagnetic, iron might work better, or silver. Like let's say silver flaking or silver foil or a silver net or a net made of iron. You might be able to like diffuse the particles in the air where the creature is, and if it absorbs its electron flow, however it's making itself be corporeal or not fully here, you might be able to make it physical fully. Because a human being was able to be pulled from a shadow to the physical, I'm leaning more towards the theory that these things are avoiding EMFs because it can disable their ability and they can become vulnerable and trapped here. using an EMP bomb if you're getting attacked by Bigfoot, or if you're getting attacked by shadow people or whatever. Let's say you shielded your electronics with tinfoil and you're out there not emitting any electromagnetic frequencies, and you're trying to capture these things and document them. If they try to grab you or they're trying to attack you, just EMP them, blast them. And also we might be able to capture them. If we can disable their abilities with an EMP bomb or metal shavings or something. You know how solar radiation hits the earth and it just blasts the magnetic field of the earth? I imagine that an EMP bomb would strip them of their abilities, at least temporarily. That the electron field around them that's allowing them to do what they do would be stripped away, and they might be sucked into the physical. I also believe that human beings, some missing people, may accidentally go to this shadow zone, the shadowy dimension, where maybe if you're there it looks normal, but for our perception it looks like they're shadows when they're there. I think some people might accidentally get stuck there because they accidentally went there somehow. Like, let's say some natural anomaly in nature or some kind of electronic anomaly happened and they fell into this other place and they can't get back, and they die of starvation there, or they get eaten there or something. Who knows? It might be just like the upside down on Stranger Things. I don't know. Peppering the air with foil, metal foil, might disable them and pull them out of the shadow where we can actually capture them. And then if you captured one, you'd have to make sure it couldn't generate that electron field again by putting electrically conductive material around it to trap it. And that's my theory. Share this with all paranormal investigators out there. I believe I'm onto something when I came up with this theory. I started just putting things together when I was watching videos. Wrap your stuff with tinfoil. Faraday cage all your stuff if you're going to try to film them or anything. Only have the lens exposed if you're trying to film them with some low light camera. Don't be blasting infrared light anymore. You're defeating the purpose of your investigation. A final note, final thoughts from Kitavitok. I've read that high amounts of electromagnetic frequencies or high amounts of electricity can cause disorientation and confusion in humans. Sometimes I think that when people are abducted by aliens and they get their memory wiped or whatever, it has something to do with the electromagnetic energy or electrical energy interfering with the brain. And if that's true, and haziness or confusion can be caused from these creatures or being in close proximity to them, then the crazy people with the tinfoil hats don't look so crazy anymore. It might be a good idea to wrap your head in a Faraday cage to protect your brain from strange electron fields that might interfere with your thinking. And the reason I say this is because I had a Samoan friend, and she was telling me about a mountain in Samoa where little people live, and the mountain's forbidden. Any Samoan people watching this could probably verify and expand on what I'm saying. But basically, the little people live in a mountain, and nobody goes there because they know you don't want to mess with the little people. You don't want to go around them. And the stories that she heard of people trying to go over there, they become extremely confused and disoriented. And that might just be a natural consequence of being around an intense electromagnetic or electron field of some sort that we don't understand, interfering with brain function. So, tinfoil hats, people. That might be the way to go. Anyway, this is Kitavitok. This is Q. I'm going to be trying to make more videos, but I could give you guys a million excuses, but it's been difficult, like with the studio setup and everything. And I'm going to be trying my best to upload more. So stay tuned for more. I'll start growing this channel again. Peace out.